everyone, it's Michelle from Heartpanorama. Welcome to another podcast of mine. Today's guest is my friend Sol from Argentina. Hi, Sol.
Hi, Mitch.
Our topic today is childhood. So we're talking about different aspects like our hobbies as kids and our parents' rules, and finally also how we perceived adults when we were kids. Let's just start with the first topic. So my first thoughts when I thought about hobbies when I was a kid was that I met a lot of friends for play dates, for example, and we played different games that were not online. Like I mostly grew up without the internet, so we either played indoors or outdoors, had board games or I don't know, make-believe games. So yeah, that's basically what I first thought of when thinking about hobbies. And when I was not meeting friends, it was mostly reading or a lot of crafting, actually. So I did a lot of do-it-yourself when I was a kid. How about you?
Well, as a kid, I play a lot with my dolls or teddy bears, like faking they had a life and playing around.
Oh yeah, me too.
Uh, but I also play a lot of computer games. When I
Hmm.
was a child, computers were a thing, so I like it. I remember going to my grandma's job because she cleaned some place where there were lots of computers, and the owner let me play the computers while my grandma was cleaning.
How
So
convenient.
I think it, yes,
Yeah.
I think I was like 4 years, 5 years old. So
Hmm. Wow, that's early.
I really like computers. Yes. And I went to the playground too many times. I had a playground near my house, so
Hmm.
I went like almost every week.
I think when I first played on a computer, I was about 9 or 10, I think. Oh yeah, we forgot to tell the people how old we are because I think
Uh,
for that topic it's probably useful to know how old we are. So I'm
yeah.
24.
And I'm 18 years old.
So I think that's not
So
that big of a difference, but maybe there are some
no,
slight differences in how we grew up, and also Sol is living in
or
Argentina and I am living in Germany. Maybe there are also differences, but I think up till now, from what you told me, it's pretty similar to how I grew up. It's just that I think in general my parents weren't as keen on giving their child a computer to play with. So I think the first computer game I actually had on my computer, apart from that solitaire things that were already on the computer, I think the actual real computer game that I had when I was like 10 or 11 years old was Roller Coaster Tycoon or something. And then you could build your own park where people could go on different rides like carousels and so on. That was actually the first computer game I had. But before that, I didn't get so much in touch with computers before.
no, yes. I think that I didn't have like one first game. I remember my dad giving me a CD with a lot of games,
Oh,
so it
okay.
was kind of like that.
Hmm.
I didn't have a specific first game.
Mm. Yeah, other than that, I think I also loved watching movies, of course. Usually the Disney movies that I think every child watches. Like the classics, for example, I was obsessed with Ariel and Mulan and so on.
Yes, same for me. I really like watching movies from Disney, and I also like some series that were airing right now at that moment, like
Hmm.
Hannah Montana.
Hmm. I watched that too as a kid. I mean, I was 12, but I think that still counts as a kid when it came out.
Yes, I think that my favorite movie was the Jungle Book.
Hmm.
Um, I really like that movie. It was with animals and a bear and
Yeah,
I think it was a puma
I love that
and a
too.
kid. Yes, I think I liked more that type of movie than princess stuff.
Okay.
I really like adventure and all that kind of stuff.
I think for me it was more of a mix of both. So I did love the movies with princesses and stuff, but I also loved the other ones with the animals and so on. I think all kinds of movies were fine with me as long as they were funny or entertaining. And I think aside from Disney, I also watched all the Barbie movies because I was so obsessed. I think when the first one came out with the Nutcracker, I was 6 and I got the VHS tape for Christmas that year when I was, oh no, I think I was 7, not 6. But still, I got that tape for Christmas and I think I watched it at least once every day for a week or so. I was so obsessed with that movie, and after that I always watched them on TV because they usually came out on TV in the year that they got released. So I was really obsessed with these movies, aside from the Disneys, of course. And also something that I just thought of is also Harry Potter. I was so obsessed with Harry Potter when I was a kid. I mean, I still am a bit, but not as much as I was as a kid.
Well, when I was a child, I didn't like Harry Potter that much. I mean, I'm watching the movies, but as I grow up, I start to reading a lot, and I read the first 5 books of Harry Potter, and I did like it. So I watched the movies again, and I love it. So yes, I really loved Harry Potter. And also, taking the subject of watching a movie again and again, I really don't like that. It was funny because when I liked a movie, I will watch it like 2 times and I was okay. But my sisters, when they liked a movie, they will watch it over and over again. I was thinking like, how can they not get tired of a movie? I mean, like, I sometimes I really like that a movie that they were watching, but watching over and over again, I think was like too much.
I think we can compare it a bit to how we act now. For example, I think as a kid, I could actually watch a movie over and over again and never get tired. But today, I think the maximum I can watch a movie is like 2 or 3 times, and it has to be like a year later or so, and I can't just go and watch something and then watch it the other day and the day after that. I don't even have the time for that anymore. And on the other hand, it's, I think, a bit boring to watch it again and again. How about you?
Yes, I still think the same as I was a child. I mean, I can watch a movie twice, but it has to be after a long time that I first watch it, because it gets too bored to me to watch it twice, like near the first time I saw the movie.
And in general, when I compare my hobbies as kids to today, like I said, I actually don't have that much time anymore, for example, to do a lot of crafting like I did back then. When I do have time to craft, I usually only do that for birthday presents or Christmas presents or so, and not just for fun anymore. Like when I was little, I was just, I don't know, crafting for fun. For example, when I was bored, I was making some kind of holders for my pens or something, or I was starting to sew also as a kid, and then I started to sew bags or something that I might use actually, and I did use them, but now they're stuffed in my closet because they're so hideous. And I won't use them in public anymore. I think as a kid I didn't even care. I was just proud of myself that I made that. But I don't know. Yeah, I was doing a lot of crafting just for the crafting's sake, I think, back then. But today I'm usually just doing it for special occasions. What I actually try to get back into is reading, because there have been a few years where I only read 1 book a year or so, and this year I'm actually trying to read more, and I almost reached my goal of 10 to 12 books this year. Do you still have any hobbies that you used to have as a kid, or did your hobbies somehow change?
I think that for me, my hobbies didn't change too much. What I didn't mention before is when I was a child, I loved singing and reading. I didn't read a lot, but now they are the same. I love to sing and read, and I read a lot, like really a lot. I have this thing that I have to read one thing at least per day. I read short stories, or sometimes I read a book, like a part of those kind of things. I think it's like an obsession to read for me.
But that's awesome.
I read a lot.
Yeah. That's awesome that you read that much. I'm trying to read more now and try to get off my computer and smartphone sometimes. So reading is actually soothing, but you actually have to sit down and open the book.
Yeah.
But yeah, I also loved singing, and I still do. So it's also been something that I've kept until now.
Yeah, also reading takes a lot of time. I mean, I don't have that much time, but I will always, while I'm doing some stuff, I will be reading too. I think that I have more than 100 books in my bookstore. So.
Wow. So you're reading them on your tablet or something, or in your ebook?
It's really hard for me to read in a ebook or PDF or something like that. When it comes to a book, I really prefer the physical book, like touching it, like feeling the texture. It's kind of silly, but I really like that.
Yeah, me too,
but
because I want to feel the pages when I read and have that nostalgic feeling of holding a book and then turning the pages and so on.
Yes, I really prefer physical books. I mean, I read some short stories online, but that's it. I mean, I can read like a physical book that I know, like in PDF or ebook. I only read when it's not on my country, like the book, it's in English or something like that, and I have to really search for it and buy it or download it in the internet. But that's the only way that I read on my phone or tablet.
Yeah. Before we talk too much about that one aspect, since we also have two others, should we just move on to the next one? I think we wanted to talk about our parents' rules when we were kids. Actually, on my side, there weren't that many rules. I think the main rule was that I had to do my homework first when I got home and had lunch. So before I got to meet friends or go playing or watch TV, I had to do my homework first. Something else that my parents wanted me to do before I was watching the TV on a certain day was that I practiced piano first, because I was also taking piano lessons since I was 7. And I just had to do my tasks of the day first before I could go play or watch TV or so. And other than that, I think my parents didn't have that many rules. The only thing I can think of is that when I was in elementary school, there were some of my classmates living in the next house, and they usually asked me if I wanted to join them play on the street or something. The children were usually playing outside, and then they were asking me if I wanted to join, and my parents didn't want that because they were playing on their own without adult supervision. And at some point they stopped asking because they knew my parents wouldn't allow it.
Well, for me, I think it's the same. My parents weren't that strict. I think the main rule that they will give me, it's same as yours. They wouldn't let me use a computer or play with my friends or doing something if I didn't do my homework first. That was my main rule that they always. So I remember doing my homework really, really fast, and so I can play. Maybe it was like too bad. I did it too bad, but I didn't care. I wanted to play.
But that was the motivation to get done. So you knew.
Yes.
there's something to look forward to. I have to do this first.
Wait for me.
But I think the most fun part was when I had friends from school over and then we could do our homework together. It was just more fun to do the homework together because you also had the same tasks or something, and then you could play together after that.
Yeah, it was funny because you will take like 2 hours more than you usually have to do their homework.
That's
because,
true.
You played and all that kind of stuff while doing the homework.
Yeah.
So it was kind of fun, yes.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, since we don't have that many rules of our parents, we can just
let's move on.
We can just think about how we perceived adults as we were little. I think that's a bit connected to the other aspect as well. Yeah, when I was a kid, I actually didn't think that much about what it would be like if I was an adult. I think there are kids who think a lot more about that than I did. But what I can remember is that I really didn't know how stressed adults can be at times. I didn't know how much responsibilities they had because I couldn't imagine it because I didn't know about them really. So I didn't know they have to pay these bills, they have to fill in these forms every year. I don't know. I didn't know what responsibilities they had and how stressed they can be sometimes and how less free time they actually have because they have to run errands, they have to do the housekeeping and so on. And as a kid, I didn't really think about it. I was just sometimes helping my mom in the kitchen or helping her fold clothes when she was ironing them and so on. But I think I wasn't really aware that it can be annoying to be an adult.
For me, I remember thinking like when I was 10 years old, when I was more conscious, I tend to think that adults had a life that was so easy. I mean, you know that as a child, you have so many restrictions, you have to do everything you are told, and adults didn't. So I was like kind of envious of that. But as I grew up, I get conscious and now I know that there are reasons they wouldn't let us doing something. I also share your thought of, I didn't think of how life was for them. I tend to think that my life was hard as a child. I don't know why. But like, if you look now, like adults' life, it's like 10,000 more difficult than a child. You have to do a lot of things. You practically don't have time. So I really think that my mom or dad are like, whoa.
I have a question. In Argentina, are you also considered as an adult with 18? Because I think in the US, you're actually a full adult when you're 21. So I just wanted to ask what it's like in Argentina. Is it also 18 like in Germany?
Well, a few years ago, you were like a fully adult when you were 21. But when you were 18, you were allowed to do some things.
Oh, okay.
But some others you couldn't do it because you weren't 21.
Okay.
But now they change a little bit of it, and practically you are an adult when you're 18. So because they move a lot of things that you were able to do when you're 21 to now 18.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, over here it's just when you're 18, you're an adult. I think there aren't a lot of things that you can't do with 21. I think you're really a full adult when you're 18. But for example, until you're 21, there are different rules how you get judged when you drive a car or something. For example, when the police catches you while you're drunk driving or something, I think there's a bit of a difference between when you're 18 at that point or 21. But in general, I think when you're 18, you're a full adult. You can also drink alcohol and so on, and you can yeah, I don't know. There are also movies that are only allowed for 18-year-olds and older. So, yeah, 18 is actually the age where you're not restricted that much anymore. So what you told me about when you were about 10 years old and started to think that you had so many restrictions as a child, I think I only started thinking about that when I was about 13 or 14, I think, when I was getting closer to that age where I was an adult. For example, when I was 16, I was really annoyed when I was at a friend's birthday party and it was in her house, so it's actually not dangerous. There were her parents who supervised us and so on. And it was only 11 p.m. and my mom was calling me all the time and asking when I was coming home. And I was so annoyed by that. And I thought, okay, when I'm 18, I can finally meet my friends until a time where I can go home by myself and not have to worry about my parents sitting at home and calling me all the time and asking when I'm gonna go home. I think the closer I got to that age of 18, I got more conscious about where the restrictions were as a minor. Because especially when I was 17, it was like 1 year until I can sign all the papers by myself and not have to run to my parents to do that, for example.
Well, for me, I started to think it that like 11 years old, because here in Argentina are some things that you only can do with 13 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe you want to watch a movie, but you can go alone because, I don't know, because restriction of the movie, and you have to be 13 years old to go alone without your parents. Maybe with my friends, we would like to hang out and watch a movie, and we couldn't because our parents have to come. And also at the time, I went a lot to the amusement park. So there are some attractions that you can do because you are a minor and you only can do if you are 13 or higher, and others when you are 18 or higher, like that. So that's why I started thinking about my age so early.
I think it's interesting that in Argentina, that age where you can do more or where you're allowed to do other things is also 13, like in the US, for example. I think they also have movies that are PG-13. And in Germany,
Yes.
there is a certain kind of movie that you can watch when you're 12. So the requirement for some movies is the age of 12. And then the next restriction is that you have to be 16. And then there comes the movies for the 18-year-olds. So I think the first Harry Potter movies, for example, were also accessible for kids under 12. But I think starting from the third or fourth movie, you had to be 12 to watch it. And I think at that point you could also watch it without your parents. I think it's interesting that in your country it's 13 and over here it's 12. And I think also different rides in amusement parks are also for kids that are 12 and older. But I'm not sure about that because I haven't been to many amusement parks, and I can just speak for the rides on the different festivals in my town, for example.
Yes, I remember with Harry Potter, same. I think I don't remember because I was too young when the first movies came out, but I think that it was same as your country. The 3rd, 4th, 5th movie, they were like PG-13, not 12. I think we are very similar to US because the presidents and that kind of stuff, they will see how the United States were allowed to do some things and they will copy it. I think that's my opinion. I don't know. But it wouldn't be a surprise that they will copy some things from the US because in the past there were some things. So yeah, we have a lot of rules that are similar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's understandable because you're in the not on the exact same continent, but I think North and South America is closer to each other than, for example, Europe and Asia and so on. I think it's understandable that you'd rather copy something from a country that's closer to you than another one that is across the ocean. But I don't know what the other European countries' restrictions are, actually. I should look that up later. So is there anything else that comes to your mind about that childhood topic in general?
Well, we can say that now childhoods are totally different.
Mm-hmm.
I think that because of the advance of electronics and all that kind of stuff, like smartphones, computer games, PlayStation, Wii, Xbox, all that kind of things, VR. Now, childhoods are too different. I mean, like, nowadays, a kid of 3 years old has already a smartphone.
Yeah, that's so weird.
I think I had my first smartphone when I was like 13, 14 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like really shocking to see that change.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
I think it's for you kind of the same.
Yeah, I think it's even more extreme for me because I already grew up with cassettes and VHS tapes and so on, and it was already a new thing when I was a kid that people had DVDs and CDs, or I think CDs were already older, but that transition from VHS tapes to DVDs was really hard for me as a kid because I wasn't used to changes. And when my parents bought me my first DVD, I was so, I don't know, I was really furious because I said, I only want the VHS tapes, I don't want DVDs. Because I couldn't deal with changes so good as a kid. And yeah, I don't know, somehow at some point I realized that, okay, this is digitization, we need DVDs now. I can't buy VHS tapes anymore. But also my parents were a bit late when it came to finally buying mobile phones, and I'm saying mobile phones because there weren't any smartphones when I was in elementary school, for example. The first mobile phone my family had was when I was in my 3rd grade, and I think I got my own phone when I got into 5th grade because that was a different school, and starting then I was allowed to go to school on my own, and my parents wanted me to have a mobile phone so I can contact them in case of an emergency or something, but it wasn't a smartphone yet. And the first smartphone I actually also bought myself was when I was 17, I think. That was 7 years ago. And I think at that point it somehow got more common for people also to have smartphones, because until then I also had friends who already had smartphones, but also friends who had just normal phones, like the small ones from Nokia that you couldn't destroy no matter how often they fell on the ground. And I think when I was 18, my mom and I were babysitting a friend's child who was 4 by then. And it was really amazing for me to see that she could already swipe on the phone and on the tablet. And it was like, when I was a kid, I didn't even know what that is. It didn't even exist when I was a kid. And now the children are like 4 years old. They already know where to click and where to swipe and so on. It's so weird to see that. And I already saw kids that were like 10 years or so when I see them on the bus when they come home from school, and they have these huge smartphones. And every time I see kids like these, I'm thinking, why do the parents have to buy them these huge expensive smartphones when they don't even know how valuable these things are, and they probably don't treat the phones that well. For example, when they fall on the ground or so, or they are running and they slip or the phones fall out of their hands or something. And I think in that case, I don't know, it's just my opinion, but I think parents shouldn't buy their kids the extra expensive phones, but maybe just the old phones of the parents, for example, because what does a kid need a smartphone for? I don't know, for emergency cases and to text your parents where you're currently at. And I know maybe for a few games, but I don't know, if I was a parent, I wouldn't buy my children the most expensive phones because I know it won't take long for them to break or something. I don't know about you, but maybe that's just because of my upbringing and I didn't grow up with smartphones, for example.
Well, I think that the age for having like a cell phone is like 12 or 13 when you are starting to going out without your parents and you need a phone to tell your parents that you're okay or something like that. I can understand why they buy some expensive phone to a kid that it's like 11, 10 years old when it's not that necessary for them. Like you can buy like other phone like less expensive because as you said, they aren't conscious of what it's a cell phone and how they have to treat it. It's like, oh, it's okay if it broke, it is lost and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I'm glad I'm not the only one who thinks that way. Because I first thought maybe it's just my opinion. Maybe I'm too, I don't know, biased because I didn't grow up with a smartphone or a tablet or so. But I'm actually shocked when I see kids that are like 9 or 10 years old and they run around with their huge phones. I'm like, why? Yeah. But it's interesting to see the development of how children grew up nowadays. And I think it depends on the parents how many restrictions the children have also nowadays, especially now when we have different technical devices. I think it just depends on the parents if they allow their children to use a smartphone or the most expensive tablet or something. Okay, I think we covered everything we wanted to say. I think it was a really interesting topic and definitely something we should think more about.
Yes, you have lots to talk about this topic.
Yes, totally. So thank you very much, Sol, for joining me for this podcast today. Everyone out there who is listening, thank you for listening this far. And if you have any thoughts about that topic as well, feel free to comment. And if you liked our podcast and our discussion, feel free to like and also subscribe for further content. I hope you stay tuned for my further podcasts and also take care. Bye.
Bye.